When you're thinking about a big step, maybe investing in a company or perhaps selling your own, that first formal bit of paper you often see is the term sheet.
Mhm.
It can seem simple, but it really does set the stage for everything else, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It really does. It's
Yep.
sort of the initial sketch,
Uh,
outlining the key ideas before everyone sinks a ton of time and money into the heavy legal lifting.
right, like agreeing on the plot before writing the whole book.
Exactly that analogy. Get the main points sorted first.
Okay, so today let's focus right in on that foundational piece, the term sheet. We'll unpack what it is, why it's so crucial, and what key things are usually in it.
And we're drawing insights today from Magnus Kjøller's book, Deal Structuring, specifically the chapter named, well, term sheet.
Yeah, very direct.
He uses a great analogy in the book, actually, calls the term sheet the blueprint for a building.
Ah, I like that.
Yeah, it sets up the basic structure, the core agreements,
Yeah.
before you start, putting up the walls and wiring everything in the detailed contracts.
Okay, blueprint it is. So let's start right there. Fundamentally, what is a term sheet?
Well, at its core, it's an agreement, but, and this is key, it's mostly non-binding.
Mostly, okay.
Yeah, it just lays out the primary terms and conditions for a deal, like an investment or an acquisition. Kjøller calls it a kind of promise between the parties.
A promise to agree on the big stuff before getting into the weeds.
Precisely. Before you move to the full legally binding contracts, it shows serious intent.
But not the final locked-in deal itself.
Exactly. And, you might hear different names for it, too, depending on where you are or the exact situation.
Oh, right. Like what? I feel like I've seen a few terms thrown around.
Yeah, you probably have. Letter of intent, or LOI, is really common. You see that a lot in M&A deals.
Okay, LOI. Got it.
Then there's Memorandum of Understanding, MOU,
Mm.
often used more in, say, public sector stuff or nonprofits, maybe for collaborations.
Right, MOU. Heard that one too.
And over in the UK or Commonwealth countries, you might hear Heads of Agreement or HOT.
Yeah.
Similar idea. And sometimes just commitment letter.
So lots of names, but basically the same function, that initial sketch.
Pretty much, whatever you call it, it's that starting point for the real negotiation. It details the preliminary understanding before you draft those final, really enforceable agreements.
You keep emphasizing mostly non-binding. Let's dig into that. What parts can actually be legally binding?
Yeah, that's super important to understand. So while the main deal points, price, amount of equity, things like that, are usually not binding yet,
Mm.
the term sheet often includes specific clauses that are legally enforceable right from the start.
Okay. Why?
Well, they're usually there to protect one or both parties during that in-between phase, between signing the term sheet and actually closing the deal. That period can involve a lot of work, sharing sensitive info, spending money on due diligence.
Right, you need some protection during that time.
Exactly. So Kjøller points out a few common binding clauses. Confidentiality is a big one.
Makes sense.
It legally forces everyone involved to keep the information shared during talks and due diligence secret. Super important for protecting, trade secrets or sensitive financials.
Definitely. You wouldn't want your secret sauce getting out if the deal tanks.
No way. Another really common one is exclusivity, often called a no-shop clause.
No shop, meaning...
Meaning the seller agrees not to shop the deal around to other potential buyers or investors for a set period of time.
Ah, okay. So the buyer gets a clear run at doing their homework.
Exactly. They get an exclusive window to conduct due diligence without worrying someone else will swoop in.
That seems fair. What else?
Governing law. This just specifies which countries or states' laws will be used to interpret the term sheet itself.
Important if the parties are in different places, I guess.
Absolutely. Avoids arguments later about which legal system applies, at least for interpreting this initial document.
Yeah.
And then expenses.
Like who pays for the lawyers?
Yeah, basically. It can outline who covers costs like legal fees, due diligence costs, accounting reviews, that sort of thing. Especially if the deal doesn't end up closing.
Yeah.
Prevents one side getting stuck with a massive bill for nothing.
Okay, so even though the big deal terms aren't locked, these binding bits offer real protection. So that leads to the question, why bother with a term sheet at all? Why is it so vital? Why not just, start drafting the final contract?
That's a really good question because it serves some critical purposes. Number one, like we said, it forces alignment early on.
Getting on the same page.
Exactly. Making sure the investor and the company actually agree on the fundamental parts of the deal. Kjøller stresses this misunderstandings or worse, disagreements at this stage. They almost always blow up into bigger problems later.
So find the potential deal breakers before you spend thousands on legal fees.
Precisely. A good term sheet hits the big ideas, the core economic and control terms, without getting totally lost in, pages and pages of dense legalese at this point.
So it's the roadmap, outlining the main destinations.
That's a great way to put it. It guides the drafting of that final super detailed contract. It's like Kjøller sort of compares it to setting intentions. You lay out the main goals first.
Got it. Okay. So we know what it is, why it's important. What kind of key things do these term sheets typically cover, even the non-binding parts?
Right. So Kjøller's chapter doesn't give like a numbered checklist for making one, but the whole document is that first step. When we talk basic terms, we mean the real core stuff, like valuation.
Ah, the big number. Pre-money, post-money.
Exactly. What's the company worth before the investment and what's it worth after? That's fundamental.
Can imagine that takes some discussion.
Oh, yeah. And tied right to that is the equity stake. What percentage of the company does the investor get for their money?
Makes sense. Valuation drives the equity stake.
Yep. Then you've got control and governance. Things like, will the investor get a seat on the board of directors?
Right. Who gets a say in running things?
Exactly. And for investors, something called liquidation preferences is huge.
Liquidation preferences. Sounds serious.
It is for them.
Yeah.
It basically dictates who gets paid back first and how much if the company is sold or liquidated.
Right.
It's a key way investors protect their downside risk.
Okay. Definitely something to watch out for.
For sure. Team sheets also usually touch on investor rights. This could be things like information rights, the right to get regular financial reports, updates on performance, that kind of thing.
Keeping tabs on their investment.
And finally, while the ultimate closing conditions are the final hurdles to clear before the money actually changes hands, the term sheet will often outline the main expectations up front. Conditions precedent, they're sometimes called. Key things that need to happen for the deal to proceed.
So really a high-level summary of all the most critical deal points. Okay, let's think practically now. What are the upsides, the pros, and maybe the potential downsides, the cons of using a term sheet?
Okay, pros first. Biggest advantage. Definitely that early alignment we keep talking about.
Getting everyone on the same page.
Yes. By hashing out the key terms up front, you quickly find out if you have a fundamental agreement or if there are major roadblocks. Saves a huge amount of time, effort, and money later if it turns out you were never going to agree anyway.
A compatibility test almost?
Sort of, yeah.
Huh?
And it gives a clear structure, a framework for the lawyers to then build the detailed legal docs. Plus, as we discussed, you could put in those binding protections like confidentiality and exclusivity for that vulnerable due diligence period.
Right, those safety nets.
Yeah. And it just forces everyone to clarify their thinking on the core deal elements right at the start. No ambiguity, hopefully.
Sounds pretty essential then. What about the cons? Any potential pitfalls?
There can be. I mean, the term sheet negotiation itself can sometimes become a battleground.
Ooh.
Yeah, if not handled well, disagreements here, even though it's mostly non-binding, can sour the relationship and potentially kill the deal before it even really starts.
Sets a bad tone.
It can. Also, that non-binding nature cuts both ways. You might agree on something in the term sheet, but since it's not legally locked down yet, someone could try to change it later during the final contract negotiation.
Ah, so it's not completely foolproof, an agreement in principle, but the principle could shift.
Potentially, yes. And if one side presents a term sheet that's seen as way too aggressive or totally one-sided, that can really put the other party off. Damage trust. Makes negotiation much harder.
Right, starting off on the wrong foot.
Exactly. And lastly, while it seems simpler than the final contract, you still need to understand what you're agreeing to, even in principle. Drafting or agreeing to a term sheet without really grasping the implications of each term, that can lead to trouble down the road. You might give away something important without realizing it.
That's a critical point. Understanding the terms is key, even at this early stage. Now, could we maybe sketch out some quick examples of how those binding clauses might work in a real-world-ish scenario?
Sure, yeah, let's make it concrete. Confidentiality. Imagine, say, a tech startup. They've got this amazing secret algorithm.
Okay.
They share details with a potential VC investor under a confidentiality clause in the term sheet. That clause legally stops the VC from telling anyone about that algorithm or using it themselves, even if they decide not to invest later.
Protects the startup's core asset. Got it.
Exactly. Exclusivity, the no shop. Picture a small business owner, maybe a bakery, looking to sell.
Delicious example.
Yeah. They sign a term sheet with a private equity firm that includes, say, a 60-day exclusivity period. For those 60 days, the bakery owner cannot legally solicit or negotiate offers from any other buyers.
Giving the PE firm time to check the books, taste the croissants.
Case the croissants, exactly. Without fearing another buyer will jump the queue. Governing law. Maybe a Canadian investor is putting money into a company based in California.
Okay, different countries, different states.
Right. The term sheet specifies that California law will govern how the term sheet itself is interpreted. If there's a dispute about the term sheet before the final deal, they know which rules apply.
Avoids a legal headache about which law applies.
Precisely. And expenses. Let's say the term sheet states that target company will cover the investor's legal fees related to due diligence, but only up to, say, $15,000.
So a cap.
A cap. It provides some cost certainty for the company. They know their maximum exposure for the investor's initial legal costs if the deal falls apart early on.
Okay, these examples really show how those binding parts offer tangible protections and clarity right from the get-go.
Exactly. There's specific enforceable promises within this broader, mostly non-binding framework. They add teeth where needed.
This has been incredibly helpful. It really paints a clear picture of the term sheet, what it is, why it matters, what goes into it. It's definitely not just some formality.
Not at all. It's foundational. It sets the expectations, manages risk with those binding clauses, and really paves the way for everything else. Understanding term sheets is, well, indispensable if you're playing in the world of investments or M&A.
Absolutely. And for listeners who want to dive even deeper into this and other aspects of structuring deals, where should they look?
Well, I definitely point them towards Magnus Kjøller's book, Deal Structuring. As we mentioned, it covers this really well. It's on Amazon, getting great reviews, and seems to be gaining a lot of traction as a really practical, hands-on guide.
Good recommendation. And any online resources tied to it.
Yes. People should also check out dealstructuring.com. There are more tools, templates, resources related to the concepts in the book, including term sheets and a whole lot more.
Excellent. So I guess the final thought is, don't just see the term sheet as a box to tick. View it as a critical first conversation, a chance for real clarity, and the first step towards building a successful deal and partnership.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's the bedrock. Get that right, and you've got a much stronger foundation for whatever complex structure you build on top of it. Worth taking the time to understand it properly right from the start.